Welcome to your Artsy Girl podcast. I am your host, Christina Carrere. This is a podcast about art, poetry, writing, and anything about creativity. Sit back, relax, and get your dose of brain food to get your creative juices flowing. Welcome to episode 42. Today's featured guest is Tony Remington. He grew up in the San Francisco Haight Ashbury area and has lived in many parts of San Francisco. Although he had experienced many Balikbayan trips to the Philippines with his parents in 2005, he began a series of extended visits to the Philippines that accumulated to more than 7 years. In 1970, he began his life as a photographer and became involved in ethnic studies at San Francisco State College and developed an interest in Eastern philosophy. Upon leaving college and after completing his first major photographic essay in the Philippines, he began his work in the post-international hotel community at San Francisco with poet-activist Al Robles and poet-social worker Presco Tabios. It was here, working as a food delivery person for homebound seniors in a makeshift re-established post-Manila town, he photographed the Manongs from 1977 to 1981. The bulk of his economic lifespan included odd jobs such as handyman carpentry, but most notably to commercial photography, working 15 years as a commercial digital product photographer for 2 pre-press printing companies. The mainstay of Tony Remington's vision is rooted in his ongoing body of work as a social realist photographer. This influence formally began to transfer into his paintings in 2017 as the official artist of the Manila Town Heritage Foundation's 50th anniversary International Hotel eviction of August 4. In his own words, quote, "I believe in a deeper indigenous sense of continued spiritual evolution." Everyone, please welcome my next featured guest, Tony Remington. Hi, Tony. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It really is my honor.
So I understand you grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. Can you tell me how it was like growing up there?
Well, it's kind of an interesting question because I have been going over these questions that you sent me, but it's interesting because I look back at it and I had actually a really good childhood in spite of things. I mean, I'm always like jumping from one end of the spectrum to the other because I actually really was traumatized by racism. As I look back at it, now that I'm older, I realized that I actually picked up a lot of habits of the way I react to things. But at the same time, I had a great time. I had a good childhood, and I think it was in high school where it really, really got worse. But I was still experiencing racism in grammar school. But I would say, San it's got to be one of the most liberal and one of the coolest cities to be in. But it's still, given that there was a lot of stuff to deal with. It was post-World War II era. So I had to deal with a lot of stuff, and I still do today. And especially with the climate of the country, I realized all that stuff hasn't really gone away.
It hasn't, no.
Yeah, but at the same time, I guess I really actually consider myself pretty lucky, but it's kind of a mixed bag. For me.
So you came to the United States, or were you born here?
No, I came to I was born in Manila in 1951, and I came here in 1952.
Wow, so you were like a real 1-year-old. Huh. Yeah.
But I grew up in the Haight Ashbury, and I'm proud of that. And okay. I'm proud of having gone through the 60s era. And I played guitar and I played in bands, and it was a really beautiful time. I even played at the USO shows for Vietnam soldiers that were going to Vietnam. It was really an amazing experience. They were really a good audience too.
Oh, I bet. So, well, okay. That's interesting to know. Okay, so now that
you grew up in that time frame and in dealing with racism and stuff like that. And I know there was like a lot of social movements at that time also. So you were at the height of that, in your growing up there. How did you get into photography and painting? I have to say your work is quite exquisite. But before we dive more into about your work, just how did you begin taking photographs and painting?
Well, I always liked to draw. Ever since, I guess most kids do, or maybe not, but I always did like to draw. And in junior college, I had a friend that was a comic book artist, and he became a well-known comic book artist, through the years. And I always kind of like envied him, and I wanted to follow a creative path. And I stumbled on photography because I felt like I wasn't ready to become a full-fledged artist. I wasn't. I was discouraged by my parents to not pursue that course. So I thought photography was kind of a compromise. But it was funny how I stumbled into it. I actually stumbled into it via my father, who was taking a photography class at Mission High School, and he had all the developing tanks and the chemicals of the house. And I was playing with his camera one day, and I realized I opened up the back and I started seeing the shutter go off and going through the speeds and seeing the f-stops change by looking at the lens when the camera was on bulb. And I realized this is actually a really simple device, and I can learn to use this. So I actually shot my first roll of film, and that was a really great time for photographers. It was what I like to consider, and many do agree with me, it's the photography's heyday of film. The movie Blow Up was out, and everybody's growing their hair long, and it was just a really cool thing to do. I got into it, and I was hanging out with my photographer, my artist friend, the comic book artist. And
what's his name?
His name was Steve Lealoa.
Okay.
He was the bass player in my band in those days.
Oh.
But he became a well-known artist, working for several publications, Marvel for one of them.
Oh, wow.
But we used to be roommates, and he used to ink Spider-Man, right across the tables from me. And I was drawing then, too. So I should say I've known two significant comic book artists, Steve Lealoa and Edward Badajos. Steve Lealoa is from Hawaii, and Ed Badajos was also from Hawaii, but he's Pinoy. Steve Lealoa is native Hawaiian. But they were both a big influence to me, and they were both cartoonists.
And you guys all just hung out together, basically.
Well, I hung out with each one of those at different times in my life.
Okay.
Steve Lealoa first, and then years later I met Ed Badajos.
And then, so it segued into the painting then, I assume,
Well, I guess even though I was majorly doing photography, I always wanted to be an artist. I found that I was always doing journals, even though I was doing photography. I have piles and piles of journals where I've got crazy drawings in all of them. And I also have to say I have some pretty silly writing in there as well. But I always...
You've written too, huh?
Well, Lusakia, the poet, always calls me a writer, but I'm always the first one to deny it. But I did write a poem in the movie ARX, the Robles Express. I have a poem in there.
Okay. But, and speaking of the Al Robles Express, so I understand you were a part of that this past year, where you traveled to the mountainous region of Luzon, Philippines. Can you tell us what it was all about, basically?
Well, it was because, well, let me start at the beginning. I worked with Al Robles in Manila Town during the post International Hotel era from 1977 to 81. But I was still working in the neighborhood with the Chinese Housing Corporation for 5 years after that. But anyway, I was down there for a few years working with Al Robles, doing my photo essay of the Monungs. So when Al passed away, we wanted to honor him because he had never gotten to the Philippines, and we were so disappointed that we couldn't get him over there, and we were all planning this trip together to because Al had written so many poems that used metaphors of the mountain people. We were really excited about bringing him there. So when he passed away prematurely, we decided to honor him with this project of the Al Robles Express, where we would go to the mountain provinces and interact with the mountain people. And it was spearheaded. First, it was Oscar Peñaranda's idea, the writer.
Right.
But Caroline Cabading wrote the grant and got the whole thing organized for us to actually do it, and it became a film. So we were following the story of one of Al Robles' children's stories of the Ifugao Mountain, a mythical mountain. It's basically the hero's journey of transformation, where you go someplace to find some kind of enlightenment, but you always end up coming back to where you started from and realizing that you had it all along. The whole story was for us to journey there and to discover our Ifugao Mountain, our own personal metaphor of what that meant to each one of us, and to make a film about it and come back to where we'd started from. But it was really an exploration in our own indigenous roots, which has really become a really important part of my vision as a human being. To realize that this is to interact and to understand fully our pre-colonial past in the Philippines.
Right.
So it's been really a great journey. Prior to that, I've always hung around Black people, Native Americans, and stuff here in the United States. But going back to the Philippines and really seeing our own indigenous reality was really a great, delightful thing and a step forward in the right direction, the direction I really needed to head into, and to really own all the things that had been taken away from me during those childhood years of racism, where you learn to internalize the racism and you become ashamed of yourself. So that a great step forward in owning ethnic pride.
Now, let's talk about your work now a little bit more. Your aesthetics, you do mainly portraiture, right?
Yes. Well, let me explain that.
Okay.
I was originally and most noted for the photo work that I did while I was working with Al Robles from 1977 to about 1981. I did photographs of the Monungs, and at that time I was just working as a kitchen person that delivered meals to the homebound seniors, the homebound Mono mostly. So I got to know them a little bit, just a little, and I took photographs of them, and these photographs, I was always very serious about photography, and I knew that I had to create I had to do something with this. I knew this was important work that had to be done. And I was really serious about it and proud of my abilities as a photographer. But I sat on that work for years. I never really did anything with it, although a lot of people noticed it on the internet and things like that, but I never really showed the work or published it. So I was asked to finally do a major show for the 50th anniversary of the Middletown Heritage Foundation. And this is already 2017.
Oh, wow. So wait, you have never shown it or exhibited it until then?
Not really, no.
Wow.
So what I did was, because of the nature of the times, and I'm basically homeless and I don't have a darkroom anymore, I decided I would paint from the photographs instead of printing them, because printing them was too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I started, I knew I could do it because I'd been taking painting classes prior to that time, and I knew I was confident in my ability to draw, at least, even though my skills as a painter are still developing. But I saw that as my paintings for that particular show, my first real major show, one-man show, as a continuation of my darkroom process, where I was gridding out the canvases and painting directly from the photographs. And it just felt like the darkroom process for me. And I'm very proud of my skills in the darkroom, because I had a darkroom for 34 years and printed my own photographs. So it was an interesting and very fitting transition to the paint. But of course now, I'm also very interested in other kinds of genres of art. But
oh yeah, what's that?
Well, I do abstract painting, and I'm very, very influenced by underground cartoonists.
Okay.
And plus, I also study somewhat the history of art, and I'm very interested in many, many kinds. Art is an ambiguous thing, isn't it? It manifests itself, of course, in many, many ways.
Well, so, yeah. Speaking of which, most artists do have dabbled in other genres. It's interesting. Yes. Do you find that one feeds into the other, or do you find it like, okay, I am done with this for now, I'll switch gears and try or do this for a little bit?
Right now, what's holding me down right now, and not holding me back, but rooting me, is my interest in social realism.
Explain that. What does that mean?
I mean, I guess it's really having a conscience that realizes that we have to try to make the world better and bring about an awareness, and also an appreciation of our history. So I was just telling the executive director of Middletown, Caroline Cabading, that I realized I'm going to keep painting the monos, even though I'd like to draw monsters and crazy creatures, as well as doing completely abstract painting. But I realized that I want to keep drawing the monos, and I'm planning a series of Kalinga paintings very soon, based on the photographs that I did in Kalinga during the Robles Express. So I guess that's been my problem all my life. It's like I want to do everything. Totally. I really believe there's a greater power that's in charge. That, well, if I might say, it's the path of the Tao that's happening. There's a greater vision beyond even what I can fathom.
I'm sorry, your subject matter, though, you say...
Social realism.
Social realism. Yes, because even your photos that I saw
when you were traveling to Manila, I believe, where you captured some people there. You captured them in like they're in despair,
Yes.
but you caught them in the moment. That it tells a story. You always want to, as a viewer, as my point of view, is to question like, okay, what happened here? What's going on? And also taking note of the composition of the piece, of course. So I think you executed that well, and you definitely have a style, a statement, I want to say.
Discardable.
I'm sorry.
In Tagalog, they would say discarte.
So what other than so you want to continue on with the Manong, is it the photographs or paintings?
Well, let me address what you're talking about, because you bring out a really, really important point, because the reality is I'm still photographing the Manongs even when I I never thought of it as street photography from my generation.
Right.
Street photography is relatively a new term, and I still don't get it. But I've always photographed streets, and I've always photographed social things. And though I always tell photojournalists that I'm not a photojournalist, and I'm not. I worked as a commercial photographer for many years, but I never worked as a photojournalist. Although I did shoot school papers when I was in college. But I had a friend once tell me that I have a photojournalistic style as a fine art photographer, and that I agree with. And I think the important aspect of my street work, or any good street work where a photographer is committed to the genre, is that it is really related to how we see ourselves as human beings. Right. I think the word that I want to get to is called humanistic photojournalism.
Okay.
It's a genre that I was very motivated and moved to when I took my first photojournalism class in college. And I was very influenced by W. Eugene Smith, for instance, and Cartier-Bresson, all the classics, of course.
So what about the work? You said you're moved with the underground cartooning. Do you want to go ahead and explore that some more and perhaps exhibit those works? Well,
here's the... I was just joking with Caroline Cabading, the executive director, the other day, because that's where I work. She hired me.
Oh, okay.
See, I was just joking with her that I want to take the Manongs and the Kalingas people and like just and my penchant for doing creatures and just odd things, and do my a new body of work, which is a series of the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album cover. That kind of like idea of just do it over and over again. It's just a fantasy I had. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that being a child of the 60s and the underground cartoonist era, I've always liked the edge that it had. It's I think pushing vision and trying to change perspective, trying to change people's perspectives of things is really, really an important thing to do, to learn to think outside of your own boxes. And that's
also
what
kind of creating a world, a different kind of world, I remember the cover you're speaking of, and cartoons in general. It brings you into another realm. Do you have a lot of body of work in that, John?
I have tons of piles. That I want to do things as my skills keep improving. I still feel that I've yet to do my best work, and it's coming soon.
There you go.
I was just reading.
Isn't that a great feeling, though? That's a good feeling to have.
I was just reading something about Hokusai, and He was 70 years old when he started doing his greatest work, and I'm 68 now, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, I could name several that are well in their 90s, even 100, that are still creating good work. So, yeah.
Encouraging. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you continue, and I look forward to seeing that. Please let me know. Especially the genre. You got to go bring that out of the closet there.
I realize because I'm involved with the Middletown Heritage Foundation and the Monongs, I realize they've been part of my iconography, but I realize I can always make it new, and I'm hoping to continue on that path and draw all these crazy ideas that I have and just keep pushing it.
Definitely. Where can people go to learn more about your work?
That's a good question. I used to post everything on the internet on my Flickr site, but now I'm thinking about, just feeding this website, and I'm just like posting on Facebook all the time. I'm really not that I'm trying to be selfish, but I realize like I'm really more concerned about learning more about my own work.
Right? No.
But
well, I understand. But another thing also is that who do you create? I mean, you create for yourself, but do you feel that you have a desire to share it with the world?
I do appreciate this attention, but I realize like I don't think my work will be fully realized until after I'm gone. I talk to so many artists and I see the situation that's going on. I'm hoping to maintain my website, and I'm hoping to keep developing it. Right now, it's just pretty. I'm sorry to say, probably the most active thing I'm doing right now is probably Facebook, but that's really a poor showing. But
okay. Well, in the meantime, I will go ahead and post that link up in your gorgeous work on the website, your Artsy Girl podcast. And it also cross posts onto my blog as well. So, but definitely, no, your work is out there, whether you like it or not.
Well, I hope to create plenty more of it and take it to the level soon. But
yes. Mm-hmm.
You know what? I don't think I answered your question. Where can people access or learn about my work? I'll have to work on that one a little bit. But right now, I am with the Middletown Heritage Foundation, and I am still showing at Middletown. I'll be showing there August 4th again, but just a group show of photographs. But I actually plan to do more. I'm thinking about teaching a photography class there. We've talked about doing photography workshops, but I guess I'm mostly known for just hanging out and taking photographs all over the place. Lou Suguitan always likes to say that I'm the people's photographer because I'm always photographing people's events all the time. But I'm actually wanting to get away from that and focus more on my drawing and painting. But I'll have to work on that, Christina. I think you're right. I don't think I've really answered that question yet.
Well, that's quite all right. And if you need any help in that aspect, I definitely can help you out.
But
no worries.
You know what? But I do realize that you're helping me with that right now. And as I said, I'm kind of new to this kind of attention. So.
Well, this is a different format. Just imagine it. Just think you're like on the radio as opposed to podcasts. It's.
You know what? I actually like this. I actually like this not being seen. It's a lot easier it's just like having a telephone conversation.
Exactly. So it's great talking to you. And hopefully, the next event, get to formally meet you next time. Great learning about you and your work, and I wish you the best of luck. And definitely let me know what your next show is, and your next projects.
I'm hoping to. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to doing some new shows because I have a whole new. From this last show that we did on Benny's Altars, I kind of feel liberated from on another level, and I've got all these ideas running through my head.
That's you're experiencing some great vibes. That's a good thing to have, to have all those ideas.
I wanted to tell you this before we finish, is that when I went to Kalinga, and I didn't mention this before, and I met Manong Sapi, the Kalinga elder that we spent time with, that Caroline Kabuding of the Militant Heritage Foundation, her husband Chet Conlas, have been documenting for the past 5 years. I met the elder Manong Sapi, and since then, and that was just last March, my life has completely changed lately. It's been really, really intense. I really feel like the journey to Kalinga was really a spiritual awakening for me on some levels. But
that's amazing.
Since that coming back, I've had amazing conversations with people about things that I don't even really know about. I mean, one young woman came into the center, and I toured her through our art show. I'm currently showing there with Mel Veracruz and England Hidalgo. And we were talking about Babayan culture and pre-colonial Philippine culture. And I was amazed of these conversations that I'm having with people. And there's I've met so many great people through traveling with Oscar Penaranda in the Philippines. Lizzie Cervantes is another one. She's actually a Babayan, a Babayan. But it's just it's stuff that I don't really want to speak of. But there's this spiritual power that my concept of the Tao or whatever that's happening, but it's become really, really intense for me these past months coming from Kalinga. And I wanted our trip to Kalinga to really mean something. And it really did mean something, getting back to our indigenous roots. Because when I look at the planet, what's going on with it, this is critically important stuff. So I guess with my artwork, I want to be part of whatever I can do to be part of that process of transformation, of paradigm shift.
Well, definitely. And that's why I think your photography speaks volumes. You definitely show the human condition. We still have a lot of work to do, for sure.
That's really the simple essence of what it is that I wanted to try to bring across. And getting back to your other question of how can people get to know more about my work or what I do, I think it's really about everyone really realizing that I'm just doing what everybody else should be doing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I suspect the people who are tuning into the podcasts are fellow writers and artists as well. But I hope that there are some people who stumble on and discover, the world of creativity, and that they too can be artists.
Well, I think you're playing an important role right now. I think these podcasts are important.
Thank you again. And like I said, keep in touch.
Yes, yeah, and I look forward to meeting you some point down the road.
Well, everyone, that is it for now. Please tune in next week for my next featured guest. In the meantime, have a productive and creative week. Bye, Tony.
Bye now. Thank you, Christina.